I am Tom, and this is AC on the Short Alpha Clash podcast, where I talk all things Alpha Clash on my way to work. I could talk about a lot of different things this week. I could talk about the Kickstarter coming out for the Cosmic Conquest board game in the end of next month, end of February. I could talk about the special promo pack collection binder that will be, or some of the other spoilers we're starting to see for the Kickstarter campaign. There are loads and loads of stuff I could be talking about. The bounty cards for Clash Grounds. All sort of things, but what I want to touch on is that while all these things are going on, there is a trading card game too, and it is in the middle of a spoiler season. So I'm going to talk about that. So the past week we started on the blue card spoilers. They sort of come in set, and we're up to blue. And I thought it would be red for some reason, but it's blue. Usually, when we're in the middle of spoiler season, what is interesting to me is to look at the cards and try to figure out what the set wants and what the game wants as a whole, and the more sets coming out, the more interesting this is, because there could be a glimpse of the future and a glimpse of the past, and maybe a glimpse of the current set coming out. If you don't know, I'm just briefly going to mention the next set for Alpha Clash is Equilibrium. It's out 28th of March worldwide, so and I'm pretty damn excited for it. So, what I want to do today is I want to skip fairly quickly through 3 of the cards and dig a little bit more into 2 of them, because I think they have some interesting hints about the future. So, the 3 quick ones are these. They're all blue, hence the blue flow. So, the first card I want to mention is the Clash buff for one of the new contenders, Alfasta. The Clash buff costs X. It's called Creation, and the tricky part about this is, or the flavorful part about this is that while X can be any amount, you can only pay one of each color of resources. Sort of playing into his whole scheme and setup about each color having a different effect when you're playing with Avast as contender. He is the giver of all, if you remember that part. So that's interesting. It gives you pay for X, and the target get plus X, and trigger victory. Letting you return a Clash card from Oblivion equal to or lower than the initial resource cost of the target Clash card, which is really interesting how that will scale through the game. The other one is Genesis, Diabolical Villain. It's a Clash card. It's a 2/2 Clash card for 2, so in that sense it's pretty mundane. However, it does play into Genesis, the contender Genesis, not in Equilibrium, but in Genesis Returns. It does play into this effect that he can play Clash cards from non-Clash buff cards from his resource phone. And this has a specific trigger. Enter. When it enters from the resource zone, you get to draw a card. So there's sort of a a hand fix in that as well. The third and last for this quick round is Gun Down, a one-cost trap in sort of a Lin style. The reason I say Lin style is two. One is that it's Lin, on sort of the art of it having a massive gun. The other is that it has a counterplay that lets you engage a clash card with a bounty count on it, and then the controller of that card diminishes one, meaning taking one from their deck and putting in the Oblivion. Both bounty counters and diminish are Lin-specific effects, I think. So there's an all-round support for something that's in there that was the last set and the set before. So a good spread on that. All of it useful, if not game-breaking. So for the two really interesting cards, and I'm probably going to blab on about them and what I find interesting for quite a bit. So hang on. The first one I want to touch in this is Alpha Aster Maximum Effort. Now, on its surface, it's a clash card. It's a 4/3 clash card with two needing to be with a cost of 4. 2 need to be blue, and for your rare slot. The interesting part of this is not that stat line, because that's sort of okay but not flattering. The really interesting part is that as long as it's out, if I remember correctly, as long as this is out and in play, it has a static effect saying that the first multicolored Alpha or Harbinger clash card you play this turn, any turn, gets all factor 2. Now, two things about this. One is the smaller part of this is all factor 2, but I'm gonna sort of waffle on about that because I think they're doing a really clever thing here. Throughout the world of TCGs, at least to what I've become familiar with, every set has come out with 2, 3, 4 new keywords that you need to know and remember. That's sort of an ever-expanding complexity, making it ever more and more hard for new players to get in. In fact, I have just agreed to come teach a couple of new TCG players how to play Magic because they stumbled on keywords that they're having a hard time getting past even the evergreen keywords. And if you're just starting out, learning 5 or 6 or 8 might be okay, but learning 20 keywords makes it a very hard barrier of entry. Now, what Alpha Clash does is it's still new games. So there will be keywords that will be evergreen, and we sort of need to understand and work with. But it's fairly limited, or at least until now, it's been fairly limited how many new keywords in the later sets that has been introduced. But one of the really cool things about it is that they've been drip feeding new keywords and new mechanics to an extent where most players can ignore them because for competitive play, they don't mean a whole lot because you can't build your strategy around it. If it happens to have it, sure, but it's not a game-breaking, meta-defining sort of effect. And for casual players, they are, as of right now, probably not gonna meet it or encounter it in any meaningful way, unless they're deck building. And even if you are just lightly deck building, you're probably not gonna meet up with it and having to relate to it and understanding in detail. So Why would you want to do this? I don't know. But I can guess, and I'm going to. One of the cool things about playing Commander in Magic is the fact that, at least for a casual sense, is that when you play Commander, you sort of build your casual Commander. You sort of build your deck in a semi-vacuum. You try to make it execute a strategy. And because of the reason for this, or at least the ones I've played, the reason for this is that the amount of cards, the card pool available for this format is so huge and immense that you can't really predict what one might be putting in their deck. You might be able to do something if you know the player, or broaden your deck. Oh, he's probably going to build something around counters or demons or whatever, but you don't know because the card pool is so immense, and that is hard to achieve. Magic achieved this through years and years and years and years of just producing cards until the point where they had 15,000 when Commander started. Now they're probably way above that with all the product. So probably above 25,000 cards. With that card pool, you can have these things. Alpha class is going to be a while before they get to 15 or even 10,000 cards. So another way to have this experience of something you've never seen before work in a casual setting, when you could go, oh crap, I did not expect that, I didn't know the game could do this, which can be fun in a casual setting. That experience you can have with things like All Factor. Now, if you don't remember what All Factor does, because it has only been out in one set, it's only been out in one set as far as I remember. It was in the Awakening where a Magnate card, I'm going to say, had it, where it gives all opponents, all clash cards all opponents have, -2, -0, which will be awesome in Gambit. But until the end of turn only, though. This effect is only on 2 cards without faster maximum effort. So you're not going to encounter it a lot, but when you do, it's going to be one of these wow moments where you go, wow, I did not know the game could do that. That is cool. And they drip feed these, so we get to the point where you can get this wow effect much earlier. Off the top of my head, other mechanics like this have been something like Safeguard, which has been out on only 3-4 cards, not a lot. And Turf Counter is my personal favorite, which is only, as far as I know, on 1 single card. And it might not be out in the next block, and that's okay. The effect is not great on a single card, but maybe that could be a thing in the future. So maybe it won't, and there'll be a sort of curiosity, right? So they are drip feeding us these keywords, and I'm gonna try to keep an eye on keywords dropping up like this. Now, this has taken away. I knew this would take long because I think the whole idea of drip feeding keywords that does not really affect the game is such a cool idea that I can only wonder why not 100 different games have already done that. Anyhow, moving on. The really interesting part, which I can't talk much about, is the multicolored part. Now, right now, at time of recording, and what we know from the sets out, we have a full circle of multicolour card, dual colour cards. I don't think 3-colour cards will make sense, but time will show. But dual colour cards or multicolour cards are already out. We know that we got a cycle in Genesis Return, but here's the thing. There's one other. Sorry, I need to mention this. There's one other. I think it's a legendary black and white clarity card. But other than that, all the dual colours are these fairly mundane 2/2s for 2, but they're dual colour, and they have the bound mechanic. Now, at ClashCon about a month and so back, we had a debate as a group with the developers of the game, and they kept referring to them as bound cards. And at the moment, every time we were talking about multicolour, they were talking about bound cards. And at the time, I thought that would mean that multicolour cards would always have bound. Bound is a mechanic where you can only have one of that card in your resource zone at any given time. So I thought that meant that all multicolour cards would be bound. Now I'm not so sure, because this sort of hints at there being more multicoloured cards, and there specifically will be multicoloured alphas and harbinger cards, and that is pretty cool, I think. I'm really, really excited to see that. Maybe it's just to play into Alfaster and his ability to have multicolored, or his need for have multicolour resources. So he just will play a lot of bound cards, which makes sense, having all the colours available as resources. But I'm really hoping that they find some way to do clash cards that can be multicolour without being a problem. I was just about, and I'm going to say, sort of uningable cards. I just started playing Lorcana a bit. I don't care much for the game, but the PV is quite interesting. And I'm not a big Disney fan either, so it has some interesting mechanics. That's besides the point. But they have these cards that cannot be used for resources, which is a cool way to sort of putting an extra price on them, so you can do something extraordinarily cool, but you have to sell some of the flexibility of the card. I think that as a mechanic, that is quite cool. I haven't seen that before. It may be what we're doing here, or maybe that will be in a future set. We just have to wait and see. Now, I did promise one more card, and I've been waffling on for way too long, but I am going to talk about it anyway. The last card that came out is maybe my personal favourite. The reason I will give in a bit. The card is called Slip Away. It's a one-cost quick action. One has to be blue, of course, since this is a blue card. What is really interesting about this card is that it has a counter attack that lets me take a discarded clash card with ambush, cost 2 or less, and set as a trap in my accessory zone. That is interesting in a number of ways. So there are other effects or other cards that can go through your Oblivion to your maybe I can't remember if there's something that goes from Oblivion to resource zone, but there's definitely something that goes from Oblivion to your hand or Oblivion into play. Those effects are already there. What is really cool about this is it's blue. Oh, by the way, because it's blue, you also, if you can get an ambush card out and play that or set it, you also get to ready 2 resources. So it's also a resource boost. Just because getting a card out is not enough. So it pays for itself. It gives you a resource, and you get a discarded with ambush. So, but the interesting part is here. I play Lord Krong, and it's always a guess what should be the second color in my deck, or if I should roll mono black, because there isn't really a synergy. There's a bit of synergy with death, but then again we're still black. But there's not really a synergy to sort of trigger this Lord Krong mechanic of drawing cards and setting ambushes in other colors than black. And we've seen sort of the same mechanic a while back with Alpha Hunters, where all Alpha Hunters were black as well. But now was it with Genesis Returns? No, we had I'm thinking back. Yeah. With Genesis Returns, we got the red Moxie, the Girl Scout Moxie, and because she makes badges, and that color shifted Alpha Hunters into red. What I'm hoping to see here is a color shift of discarded into blue. The thing is, you're probably going to want to run more than one color to gain effects, but to gain effects from the sort of core effects from another color without sacrificing too much of your synergies, that would be really, really cool. Now, I should mention, in the case of Slip Away, that card that you get out and get into your to accessory zone, even if it has a trigger or a counter on attack, you can't trigger and a counter it in that same turn, because that phase has sort of shifted. You're on that step has shifted to the next step once the card comes out. So your reactions are done, but it is a cool thing, sort of getting a bit of protection out, or a bit of obstruction at least. Maybe you could do a Lord Krong. I was about to say poison, but Lord Krong has a I'm blanking on the name. He has a cheap Lord Krong that kills instantly. Maybe you could get him out. That would be no, wait, he doesn't have ambush. Anywho, you could get an obstruction out. That would be really, really nasty to swing into. That could define whether or not you want to go again at attacking. So all in all, I think those 2 cards, Alpha has the maximum effect, and Slip Away presents a really interesting look into how they design cards at Rising Empires, and how we can start looking forward to using mechanics, maybe in this set and maybe in future sets. Anyway, that's all the ruffling I'm going to do today. I could talk a long time about how cool this is. I'm really, really excited for Equilibrium. I hope you are too. And if you're buying from your local game store, as you should do, try to see if you can pick up one of the LGS special comic books. I am really, really hoping that I'm set in for getting one. So we know in about 2 months or something like that. That's all for me. I'll let you go now. Talk to you then. Bye.